everyone. Welcome to today's session, The Dirty Dozen Secrets That Raleigh Home Inspectors Don't Want You to Know. I was talking to Josh before we got on this call, and I said, although most of the time I know what we're going to be talking about since this one is about secrets, I actually have little knowledge. But Josh is going to guide us today through some conversations that more home inspectors should be having, not just with clients, but with agents alike. And so as with everything in real estate, it's all about relationship building, and the more proactive we can be with those conversations, the better, which then in turn helps us set expectations with our clients to set everyone up for success and not just the transaction, but hopefully getting to closing and beyond. So as always, Josh, thank you so much for being with us. Josh is with OpenWindow Home Inspections. He's a preferred vendor with us. If you haven't met him yet outside of these sessions, please reach out. He attends a lot of our events, and I'm sure you guys often have inspections. So if you haven't tried him yet, give him a ring. Josh, thanks so much for your time as always.
Yes, absolutely, Kate. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody being here today. And thank you for giving me the chance to hop on these calls once a month or so often. I absolutely love doing this. And this one right here is by far one of my favorites. And I have to update this one every year. So it gets fun because home inspectors talk just like agents behind closed doors and things like that. So um, I reach out to a small group of home inspectors and we'll kind of collaborate and talk about stuff. So these aren't secrets of just Open Window. It's across the state, even across the United States, because I've got quite a few home inspectors out in Michigan and things like that. So I'm going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. If I can get that. There we go. You able to see that? Okay, perfect. Situated. So the dirty dozen secrets Raleigh home inspectors don't want you to know. We're going to discover the inside secrets about home inspections that every realtor needs to know to protect their clients and yourself and keep deals alive. So you've all been through inspections, and some go smooth and others go sideways pretty fast, right? So what I'm sharing today is a theory. It's not a theory. It's field level truth from what inspectors see every single day, but rarely say out loud. This isn't a bash session. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about exposing the gaps that derail deals and giving you control back through clarity, confidence, and better collaboration. Because when you know what's really going on behind the scenes, you don't need to get blindsided, you get ahead of it. And that's what we really want. So why this matters? Let's be honest. Most of you already know how home inspections work. You've guided dozens, maybe hundreds of your clients through them. This isn't about explaining the process. It's about sharpening your edge. This conversation isn't about making you an inspector. It's about making you the calm in the storm. And that's kind of my story this year is the calm in the storm. So this market's pretty crazy. We need that, right? So you don't have to catch every technical term, but you do have to lead your client when the report lands like a bomb in their inbox. Because if you don't set that tone, someone else will. And that someone might be a contractor, a nervous buyer, or even a drama-prone inspector. We all know those ones. This presentation isn't about helping, this presentation is about helping you lead better, frame faster, and close smarter, starting with the 12th truth that no one is saying out loud. So let's talk about what really kills deals. Secret number 12. And I'm going to start from the bottom and go all the way up to the top to number 1. So number 12, most big issues are actually small fixes. We know this. As realtors, you know this. Most big issues are actually small fixes. So let's talk about what really kills the deal. It's not foundation cracks or collapsed roofs. Who's going to get into an inspection already knowing that stuff? It's the minor things that sound major. Because the inspector has to use strong wording to cover their liability, especially here in North Carolina. Our state says we have to have DDID, and that right there is so hard to not have that strong language. So things like no GFCI protection. Sounds like the house is dangerous, but it's a $25 fix. Evidence of active leak. It sounds catastrophic until you realize it's from a loose fitting on a $3 P-trap. Improper grading. Sounds structural, but most of the time it's redirecting downspouts and adding some soil. These are fixable and they're common. And they shouldn't kill the deal, but they will. If you let fear run the conversation, this is where your leadership matters. When your clients see hazard or safety, they think worst case scenario. You have to bring it back to perspective. What's the actual risk? What's the actual cost to fix? How common is this? Lead them to clarity and you keep the deal alive. Secret number 11, add-ons are where the real problems are. Now, let me say something clearly. It's not your role to determine what's worth it for your client. It's your role to present the risk and let them decide. I know how this goes. You think, oh, they're already stressed. Let's not pile on more cost. Or let me save them a few hundred by skipping that radon test. But here's the reality. No sewer scope? That could be a $15,000 dig job. No septic inspection? That's a tank failure waiting to happen. No radon test? Invisible health hazard. No air quality check? Well, cue the post-close mold crisis. There's a reason some inspectors cost less. They move fast, they skip depth, they avoid risk, which means more risk for you and your client. And when something slips through, it's not just the inspector catching heat, it's both of us. That's why we have to approach this as a team, aligned, proactive, and thorough. So what's the move? Offer every critical inspection if your client offer every critical inspection. If your client chooses to decline something, no problem, but put it in writing as part of your process. You can do something as simple as this. Client has elected not to proceed with specific inspection. They understand that this may limit the scope of information available prior to closing. It keeps it simple, professional, respectful, and protective for everyone involved. And then you just have them sign it. Secret number 10, home warranties aren't peace of mind. They're damage control. A lot of people don't realize this. And I'm exposing something that most inspectors will never say out loud. A lot of us push home warranties not to protect your client, but to protect ourselves. Why? Because some inspectors know they're missing things. They're rushing, they're undertrained, they're avoiding complexity, and instead of leveling up their process, they lean on a warranty flyer to say, if anything goes wrong, this will help. Let's be real. That's not added value. That's a liability parachute. And most clients don't know this. They think the warranty is a bonus, not a red flag. The best inspectors don't need to lead with warranties. They lead with clarity, accuracy, and confidence. They find the problems up front, not after closing when it's too late to negotiate or back out. So next time someone talks about all the free protection they offer with the inspection, ask yourself, are they protecting the client or just protecting themselves from a callback? Secret number 9, inspectors want you to handle it after the report is sent. And we're going to talk about something you probably experienced more than once. The inspection gets done, the report hits your inbox, and your client spinning, overwhelmed, maybe even ready to walk. And the inspector, gone. No call, no breakdown, no walkthrough, just poof. This is more common than people think. Many inspectors know exactly which words will set the alarm bells and still leave you to explain them. The report gets delivered like a legal document, and you're left trying to interpret terms like improper, compromised, or potential structural concern to a nervous first-time buyer. But that shouldn't fall entirely on your shoulders. The job doesn't end when the report is sent. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about helping people understand what they're reading. And at OpenWindow, we don't just ghost after the send button. We're available. We walk through it with the client so you're not stuck carrying it alone. Because whether they admit it or not, most inspectors are out the door before the real questions even start. Secret number 8. We know contractors love blaming inspectors, and we let them. This one is a slow burn. And honestly, I wish I had to put it at number 8 because there's some really great ones, but I think this one should be up a little higher. So everything goes fine. The home closes, the client moves in, then the first repair guy shows up looking at something and says, the line that we've all heard multiple times, your inspector should have caught this. But here's the truth. They weren't there. They didn't see what we saw, how we saw it. And they're speaking from hindsight, not real-time conditions. Still, that comment plants a seed of doubt in your client. And that seed, it grows into blame toward the inspector and sometimes towards you. Now, here's the dirty part. Most inspectors won't defend themselves. They won't say, that's unfair. They'll just shrug it off and know you're stuck managing the tension. What's the best defense? Work with inspectors who don't disappear and who document thoroughly. Because when a contractor starts rewriting the story, someone needs to have the facts straight. And most inspectors, we let that moment slide when we shouldn't. Secret number 7, most inspectors don't want you in the room, but the good ones do. This one might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's real. Some inspectors don't want agents or clients present during the inspection. They won't say it directly, but you'll hear the signals. Just wait for the report. Oh, we'll email everything. Nothing urgent. I'll note it in writing. Why do they do that? Because when no one's around, they move faster, no questions, no pressure, no accountability, and most importantly, they control the narrative. But that silence, that's where risk creeps in. Now your client is reading a dense technical report with no tone, no clarity, and no opportunity to ask questions. Words like compromised, improper, or evaluate further land like a punch, and suddenly the whole deal feels unstable. We've heard those words already. You don't need to be there for the, here's the shift. You don't need to be there for the full inspection, but showing up towards the end, that's the golden window. That's when you hear how findings are explained. That's when your client sees that you're engaged. That's when you're able to ask, can you walk us through this one just a little bit more? Some inspection companies quietly build this into their process. They protect the focus during the inspection and then carve out time at the end for crucial face-to-face. Because yes, the report matters, but the conversation about it, that's where confidence gets built and deals stay together. Secret number 6, most inspectors have no complaint process, just silence and defensiveness. And this one typically hits hard after the dust settles. The inspection is over, the house is closed, your client moves in, and then something goes wrong. You see what's going on there? It happens. They all move in, and then something happens. Trend. It's a trend. They find a leak, or they find mold, or broken something they're sure should have been caught. And suddenly, they're on the phone. Not with the inspector, with you. So you call the inspector and ask, hey, can we talk this through? And what do you get back from the inspector? You get silence, defensiveness. Oh, it's in the report. Or worse, that wasn't visible at the time. Not our responsibility. Here's the truth most inspectors won't say. They're not trained to handle post-inspection concerns. They're trained to cover liability, not handle the client moving forward. They don't have a process. They just have a reflex. Protect, avoid, move on. And where does that leave you? Caught in the middle, trying to manage expectations, keep trust, and explaining something you didn't even do. So here's the move. Ask your inspector, what happens if the client has a concern? Do you have a system for that? If they hesitate, that is the answer. Because you don't just need someone who can inspect a house, you need someone who knows how to communicate after the job is done. Secret number 5, inspectors rely on your leadership, but will never admit it. This is one of those unspoken truths most inspectors won't admit. We don't say it, but we feel it. We need you. When we're presenting findings, especially the tricky ones, we're watching you. Are you staying calm? Are you engaging, or are you checking out? Are you reinforcing what's being said or quietly looking concerned? Because we know the second you look worried, your client unravels. So here's the catch. Most inspectors won't admit they need your presence, your composure, and your leadership. But the truth is, if you disappear emotionally or physically, the entire deal gets shaky. The best inspections happen when the agent and the inspector are aligned, not operating in silos. You don't have to pretend to be an expert, but being grounded, attentive, and present makes you emotional anchor your client needs. So while we might be holding the clipboard, you hold the deal together. And when we both do our part, the client doesn't just get a report, they get clarity. Secret number 4, many inspectors don't understand real estate. And honestly, some of the things that I hear from time to time, I'm like, what? How does that even make any sense? So, real estate is a whole different realm that I tend to not really play in. So, uh, an inspector should have an idea of terms and things like that. But here's the truth that no one really says. Most solo inspectors never learn this, and most multi-inspector companies, they don't teach it. Inspectors are trained to look at houses, not how deals work, not how contracts flow, not how their words affect deadlines, negotiations, or emotions. They're taught how to spot a defect, but not what the defect means to a nervous buyer, a tight timeline, or a deal hanging on clarity. So they write it for themselves, not for the client, not for the agent, and definitely not for the transaction. And you're the one left to fix it. It's not that they're trying to blow the deal, it's that no one ever showed them what it takes to help keep one together. That's why you need more than a licensed inspector. You need someone who understands real estate as well as they understand construction. Because in this market, clarity closes, confusion kills. And the wrong report from the wrong mindset can cost everyone at the table. Secret number 3, some inspectors are burned out and you'll never know it until it's too late. And I've been here. Let's talk about something that rarely gets discussed: burnout in this industry. And I don't just mean inspectors, I mean realtors too. We've all felt it. Back-to-back deals, deadline stress, client overload, zero white space on your calendar. You start operating on muscle memory, just trying to get to the next day without something blowing up. But here's the difference. When an inspector burns out, it can cost your client big. You might not see it coming. Inspectors who've done 1,000+ inspections can start to drift. They stop slowing down. They stop asking the extra question. They stop thinking. They go through the emotions, snap the photos, check the box, deliver a clean report. But their focus isn't in the room, and you won't notice it in the report. You'll notice it in the callback 3 weeks after closing, when your client finds something that wasn't flagged and it should have been. That's why it's okay to ask your inspector, how many inspections do you take per day? Do you space your schedule or stack it? Do you still love what you do? Because this work is demanding, but your clients deserve more than someone just getting through a day, and so do you. Secret number 2, inspectors aren't as independent as you think. And here's the myth. The inspector is a neutral third party. Sounds great, but it's not true. The reality is every inspector brings their own baggage into the report. Maybe they had a client sue them last year. Maybe they're trying to look extra sharp in front of the buyer. Maybe they hate agents because of the deal that went sideways last month. They're not robots, they're humans. And what you get in the report is filtered through their fear of liability, their opinion of the property, and sometimes their opinion of you. So when you see a report that feels overly dramatic or weirdly vague, this is why. You need to understand the tone of the report isn't always about what's wrong with the house. It's about what the inspector is trying to protect. And if you don't know how that inspector thinks, you're flying blind. That's why aligning with the right inspector matters just as working with the right lender or attorney. You don't just want a license, you want someone who understands the bigger picture and won't sabotage the deal with scared reports. And finally, secret number 1, there are only 2 types of inspectors. And this is one that nobody talks about, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I'm telling you, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most inspectors are trying to look smart. They're performing, they're saying things like, this needs further evaluation by a qualified specialist. This appears to be compromised. Oh, there's moisture intrusion noted in the immediate vicinity. That's my inspector voice, by the way. The client nods like they understand, but they don't. You nod like you're fine, but you're already thinking about fallout. That's a performer, and their goal isn't to inform, it's to look impressive. But the best inspectors, the ones who save deals instead of kill them, do the opposite. They simplify, they translate, they say things like, here's what this means, here's how to think about it, and here's how typically we see people handle it. They're not putting on a show. They're strapping into the role of educator, guiding your client through what matters, why it matters, and what can be done about it. They replace confusion with clarity. They take the fear out of findings, and they give you room to lead the deal instead of cleaning up a mess. Because the real power of a great inspector isn't what they know, it's how well they help everyone else understand it. And that right there is why that is secret number 1. So, quick recap. What do you do with this? We covered a lot. Things that most inspectors won't say and most agents never get told. So what do you do with this? It's simple. Use what you've heard here today to reframe how you think about inspections. Ask better questions. Choose inspectors who communicate clearly and support your process. And when things feel off, trust your gut and speak up. You don't need to memorize all 12 secrets. You just need to remember that how we handle the inspection moment together shapes how everything moves forward from there. And that's where the difference really gets made. And a little bonus secret for you, your contractor friend is not helping. I mean, we've all know this story, and I'm sure all of us have been through it. The inspection goes fine, everyone's feeling good. Then the buyer's uncle, the buyer's friend, neighbor, or the buyer's dad, who happens to be a contractor, comes through and says, "I can't believe your inspector missed this." Here's the problem: they didn't walk with the inspector, they didn't even read the report, and they're not licensed as a home inspector. They're seeing the home through a repair lens, not a risk lens. Their job is to find work, not assess visible conditions objectively. And they have zero liability for what they say. Meanwhile, your inspector is trying to be accurate, not dramatic. They're writing legal document. The contractor is, excuse me, the contractor is freelancing. You need to prep your client for this ahead of time. And you can say something like this: it's totally fine to have someone else look, but remember, they're not operating under the same standards or legal responsibilities as the inspector. That right there is something that you should be writing down 100%, because that will clarify and help you out so much in the future. Otherwise, your clients start doubting the whole process and the deal starts unraveling. So I don't know if you can click on this PDF here. If not, what I'll do is, oh, go back here. So this link here, if you can't click on it, let me know. I can drop it in the text before the end. But this PDF is yours to share. It includes phrases that can be used to help reframe client panic during the inspections, especially when you start hearing words like cracked or improper. You know, those typically trigger emotional reactions. So keep this as a reference, or even take it and build it, make it your own version for yourself or your team. Just another way we're here to support you, and not just for the report, but you know, just having that conversation that comes after the inspection will definitely help.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I don't think we
Yeah.
can click on it. So if you could pop it in the chat, that
Okay.
would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Give
Um,
me just a moment here.
yeah.
So, well, we've hit the core of the Dirty Dozen. This is your time now. But I would like to know what stood out, what made you think differently. What do you wish more inspectors understood? I want to definitely hear some questions about that. And then, you know, we're not looking for perfect questions, just honest ones. So let's open it up and talk about what really matters to you.
I like the question of asking your inspector, how many inspections do you do a day? Right? Yeah. Because I mean, you guys are crawling through crawl spaces. I mean, it's not glamorous, right? Let's just, you
No,
know.
definitely not. Definitely not. And you know, I during COVID, I was doing 3, maybe 4 inspections during the summer. You know, you can get up at early before the sun even starts. You can get on site, um, and start that inspection as soon as you have that little bit of daylight. And that's how I had burnout that year. And I will never ever let any of our inspectors do more than 2 a day. And we watch our calendar. Um, because I've gone through it. You know, I've had those 1960s, 1950s houses back to back to back to back for 2 weeks. That will burn you out quick. Those houses that are 30, 40, 50 plus years old and they just been lived in and not taken care of are brutal. So yeah, definitely ask those questions.
I like the points about the contractors. That's something that I always try to prep my client about, and kind of in a different phrase, but I would always say something along the lines of, we can bring in another party to take a look at this. The thing that we need to keep in mind though is we're not paying them to come out here. They are providing a service for an opportunity to sell you something. And so they're going to find something to make it look scary. They're going to find even more to try to upsell you. And so we need to keep in mind that one, they have ulterior motives. And two, when we go into negotiation, having some high number doesn't increase the probability of us getting a lot of money, right? So we're not going to be bringing in a ton of vendors and trying to get the highest quote possible. We're here to find what the solution is that you're needing for your home to feel confident in moving forward. But the way that you phrased it, it did kind of point to like, well, they're also trying to build trust really quickly. And if they're trying to build trust in, a 15-minute appointment versus a 2-hour inspection, they're kind of willing to throw someone else under the bus to do it if it's like, hey, how did you miss this, right? Kind of a
Yeah.
false trust. So anyway, that was something that I kind of thought about. Another thing that I wrote down was, man, this conversation made me want to make like 3 different email templates. One that goes out before the inspections get scheduled. It was like, here's a friendly reminder of when we're going to be showing up, which was always something I would say, but it makes me want to add a few things like, here are a few findings that can look really scary but are really common. And here's, as a friendly reminder, at the end, we'll talk through all of it together so that you understand what is going to be said on paper and might look scary versus how an inspector would say it to you personally. And they're also here to be a resource, and then one
Yeah.
afterwards, but before the document is received, and then maybe even one before contractors are sent, kind of re-outlining all of that. But yeah, I always agree with having a 30-minute conversation right at the end, because then you're kind of out of the inspector's way, but you truly can talk to them because, to your point, there are a number of things that will cause them to put in kind of that fluff verbiage, like polybutylene pipes and masonite siding. So during tours, I always try to point out those things, being like, this is masonite. Do you know what that means? Like, proactively, let's just talk about it. This is what it would look like on an inspection.
Yeah.
But it's a lot scarier when you see like a half-page paragraph versus talking to someone. So I think that
Right.
human connection really matters. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, and sometimes we can't avoid those long paragraphs. We as inspectors we have to write them a certain way because of state SOP for us, our licensure board. So it's having that conversation at the end is definitely beneficial, and that's something that we work on year round with our inspectors, because it does get nerve wracking to have that conversation, to be talking with strangers all the time, and I don't know why, like our inspectors, they get, one day they'll be totally fine, and then the next they're like super nervous. So I don't. It's just one of those things I guess you have to get over. But yes, it's definitely hard to have those conversations. And if there's anything that we can do to help you all pre or post inspection, let us know. I can build a quick document for you with, hey, these are the most common issues that you're going to see. I can make documents to say, hey, this is how you read your report. Whatever you all need, feel free to lean on me for that inspection process. Um, even our inspectors. So don't be afraid to ask those questions or ask for those items.
Well, I think I can safely speak for us. I think I would like both of those. If you have a PDF, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then one last thing, obviously these conversations kind of underscore it, right? But it's really important that we have vendors that we trust and work with regularly for so many reasons, but also just because you get to know the way that they phrase things. And if our clients are leaning on us for what is standard and what should be concerning, the way that an inspector says something has every opportunity to either make or break a deal, And so if there is something that's said and it's not delivered in the way that you think it should be, like, definitely feel free to give that feedback to your inspector, likely afterwards. I personally had an experience with a home inspection company I'd worked with for years, and they sent out a rep that I hadn't worked with yet. And it was like a 1960s ranch style home, and the chimney was pulling away from the house itself. And the guy laughed when he told us. He was like, yeah, the chimney's pulling away and like that'll be pricey. And I'm like, dude, this is a first-time home buyer who's putting up kind of like all that he has for this house. And we don't find that funny. And so I had to really make sure that afterwards it was quite a crisis to manage. And then afterwards, I definitely made sure to talk with that company to make sure that that verbiage was never phrased that way again. So it's a two-way communication. All that to say, like, we form connections with companies for a reason, and they're human. So like, just like we'd hope people would give us feedback, same for the people we trust. Anything else you guys want to add, or personal experiences or things that resonated? All right. Well, as always, I appreciate your time. Josh, thank you so
Yeah.
much for doing this. It's a pleasure always. Thank you everyone for starting your day with us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I dropped the link in there. So
Thank you.
Okay. I'll snag it before we close it
awesome.
out.
You have a good one. Take care.
Bye.